Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live stream. If you're watching from Australia, it's daytime. We are very, very grateful for everyone for being patient with us while we work out some technical issues that we were having. And tonight is the first night that I'm actually attempting to stream to multiple platforms. So it looks like I am live on Instagram, which is great. The Facebook Live doesn't seem to want to work for me. I don't know why, but it just doesn't want to work. We should be live on X as well. I'm just checking that. And also for those people tuning in from X, I previously was having an issue where my comments weren't coming through on X. And so that should now be resolved as well. It looks like the X live stream is working as well. So now you can comment on X. Because I'm streaming to multiple platforms, you may not be able to catch all of those comments. If you are watching on Instagram, and I can see we have a few hundred people on there right now, I recommend everyone get onto Rumble where you can actually interact live. You can go to my Rumble by going to the link in my bio and jump on Rumble and get on with everyone else that's in there in the chat or on X, either or. But nonetheless, we will be on Instagram. I'm going to stream on here regardless. You're just probably not going to catch the entire video feed because it's portrait and a bit of it's cut out. So something very important happened this week in Australia. We had Senate estimates. Some people watched the hearing. Some people have yet to watch it. Some people have no interest in watching it. Why this is so important, and believe you me, it has frustrated me to unbelievable degrees that I haven't been able to stream properly for the past week, but it's actually been a blessing in disguise because it's given me time to really gather my thoughts and really get a sense of the political landscape, not just in Australia, but all over the world. And a shift has absolutely happened. And I want to be clear that this is not hopium. This is not, pretending that everything's going to be okay and all rosy. Because as you all know, I'm a realist and I always look at the positives and the negatives. And I do have some things to say about the Trump administration that are both positive and negative, things that I'm seeing right now. And I will be giving some analysis around that later in the broadcast. But what I will say is that undoubtedly the re-election of President Trump for the third time, for all the election deniers out there, my fellow election deniers, has really, really emboldened people all around the world. We saw videos out of Scotland of people singing, holding the American flag and celebrating for the American people because they know that it means liberty will flow to other countries. And I will talk more about that later on. This is one of the key reasons why I have been focusing a lot of time and attention on the American side of things. I think we're live on YouTube as well. We are. Okay. This is why I've been focusing a lot on American news, American politics. And I made that very clear. And if anyone thinks I don't care about Australia anymore, obviously I do. I'm just very, very aware of the fact that anything that happens here in the US, where I still am, is going to affect the rest of the West and consequently the world. And so that has been a huge focus of mine. As you all know, I've been reporting on US politics for years now, but this has been one of the most important periods in recent times. And if I can look back on all of the work that Zeee Media as an independent news source has achieved, all of the things that we've exposed, I see this tipping point now where the people were, when you look at the whole timeline, it's fascinating. You see that originally people were very scared during COVID times and they were kind of thinking, okay, what are these people going to do to us? Are they going to lock us up? What's going to happen to dissenters? We're being shut down. We're being switched off from every platform, deplatformed. You all know I had to make 3 Instagram accounts. I'm on my 3rd Twitter account as we speak. Thankfully, I'm not banned anymore, but I was banned on LinkedIn. I'm still on some sort of a permanent Facebook ban where, since April of 2022, my posts are shadow banned, and they even admit to that. They just say your posts are going to appear lower in people's timelines, and that is just the reality of telling the truth. And it has been extremely challenging as an independent news source to get your information out there, which is why it is so insulting when I listen to these people that have come, these independent people who've come into the Senate estimates in Australia to talk about this mis and disinformation bill, trying to cry about how difficult it is for news organizations to wade through the mis and disinformation, when I'm someone who's been, and I speak for many, who's been deplatformed time and time again, lost their entire career contacts on LinkedIn, over a decade of an extremely successful professional career in the corporate world, where I built a lot of contacts, just wiped out from under my feet. And we've all felt the pain of censorship, even the people with smaller accounts, you amass a little bit of a following, you feel like you've grown a community, and then you get wiped out by big tech, who works in collusion with the globalist system that is looking to subvert us in every single facet of society, which is, of course, what this mis and disinfo bill is. And so we've gone through this timeline of people being very afraid, then people getting, frustrated, emboldened, people going out in protest against the tyranny of the COVID era. And then that has continued, obviously, as you would recall, Kerry Chant in Australia, Brad Hazard saying this is the new world order during that time, basically telling us things are going to change and we're in charge of the ship now. And people rejected that en masse all over the world. People rejected that. You saw protests all over the world, people holding up signs that the media is the virus and we reject the New World Order and we will not be having this. And people are massively awake to the scam that is the World Health Organization. Their aim to establish a worldwide medical tyranny and advance global government, as Donald Trump recently admitted. And you see people are aware of the truth about Agenda 2030, the United Nations, which is the main vehicle. Agenda 2030 is the main vehicle behind all of the tyranny that we see worldwide, when it comes to cutting off our energy, shutting down free speech, mutilating children, and telling you that you're a terrorist if you oppose it. I mean, everything, every single thing, when it comes to sexualizing children, when it comes to digital currency, when it comes to censorship, when it comes to all of these things, it all links back to the UN and their plans for an AI world society. Of course, the UN, I'm not under any illusions that they're the top of the food chain. And I've said many times, if we know their names and their faces, they are not the ones in control. But something very amazing happened last week, where Donald Trump was reelected despite the entire system being against this person. And he's come out with some very bold statements on how he plans to tackle what he calls the deep state and the globalists. And that is, of course, the terms that we use. Now, are all of the decisions that he's made thus far perfect? I don't think so. And again, I will talk about that later. But some very key things have been happening. He says that he plans to make sure that only two genders are recognized, because that is true science. He plans to exit the World Health Organization. He plans to to attack the censorship industrial complex that is the globalists working with big tech, Google, so on and so forth, to tackle that. And he specifically mentions that being done under the guise of mis and disinformation. So I have a clip later on to play for you about that. But that is crucial progress for humanity. X has been absolutely instrumental in facilitating free speech. Now, of course, I've complained about some censorship on the platform. I don't think it's perfect, but by far more than any other social media platform, people, including myself, have been given the ability to get more truth out on that platform than anywhere else other than, I'd say, Telegram. The problem with Telegram is that you're insulated with your audience, only the people that can hear about you, and that depends on them hearing about you out there, where X does actually give people the ability to do that. And of course, this is a huge threat to the establishment. We had Senator Jackie Lambie in Australia some time ago talking about that we need to arrest Elon Musk. We've had Senator David Shoebridge, who I really like, actually, saying, some people would call him a threat to democracy. And it's fascinating to watch these people just scrambling over the fact that a mass awakening, if I can use that word, I don't, like a lot of these buzzwords, but if I can use that word, a mass awakening has in fact happened worldwide, and it can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. If we look at that timeline of fear, censorship, battling through the censorship, getting out there, breaking through the mask hysteria of the masked, triple boosted people that were just fearful of the sniffles, breaking through the control that the government had, and convincing more people around the world that we are being lied to. We're there, ladies and gentlemen. We have achieved beyond critical mass. And I'm not saying that for wishful thinking. I am serious. I am telling you the truth now. We have achieved critical mass. And we have achieved the goal of the media being completely irrelevant. In fact, just today, CNN, and I can bring that up while I'm talking to you, CNN announced that they are laying off a bunch of staff due to failing ratings. They're actually laying off their top people, their top talent, because they are failing so... it's unbelievable failure that this organization is going through. And I'm having trouble bringing that up, but I will get there. Give me a moment. There we go. CNN will axe top stars in layoffs that'll see hundreds fired as ratings continue to tank. Ladies and gentlemen, CNN is one of the largest propaganda outfits in America and therefore in the world. And so it is. We've seen this time and time again. We saw Channel 10 in Australia failing so poorly. They were performing so poorly that Australian taxpayers, their money was used to bail this failing organization out. We've seen recently Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post come out and say, we have to be honest and admit no one trusts us anymore. And he goes on to even admit by saying, I'll be damned if I let some podcasters, misinformed podcasters, overtake, the Washington Post. That is an admission, albeit a false allegation against misinformed podcasters. People watch us because we're very informed, actually. But that is an admission that independent voices, podcasts, independent media has completely overrun a monument like the Washington Post. You think about that. You think about, and kudos to him, by the way. I respect that he admitted that. I really do. And this is obvious that these people now are scrambling to try and claw back their credibility. And even in recent times where I've said it's very strange that the mainstream media is reporting on something honestly for a change, I really think that this is about clawing back their credibility. And I agree with that initial assessment. When we started seeing some truthful headlines coming out, some truth about the injections, some truth about, whatever, the Russia hoax or the Hunter laptop story or whatever it was, it's part the dam breaking because they just hoped that we would all lose hope, that we would all give up, that we would all just say, it's all too hard, I've been squashed too much. They hoped that when they debanked me and put me on national television as some sort of domestic terrorist, that I was going to freak out and say, oh, you know what, I better shut up because I'm too scared of losing what's in my pocket. And they very, very strongly underestimated me and every single free person on earth. Because our motivation is not our pocket. Our motivation is not fame or fortune or any of these things. Our motivation, and I speak for myself and I'm sure many who are watching this, our motivation has always been leave us the hell alone so that we can live normal lives within the confines of the law, which is currently makes sense. And we don't need to ban gas stoves, and no, you're not going to shut off my electricity remotely, and no, you're not going to give control of my child to the state and send me to prison for trying to stop you from chopping off their genitals, and no, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do with my money, and no, you can't ban me from withdrawing my cash from the bank, and you certainly cannot establish a mis and disinformation bill giving the power to ACMA to decide what may or may not end up being hate speech, what may or may not be mis and disinformation judged by some career politician who is a seriously deranged, mentally unstable leftist who is either part of the establishment or completely brainwashed by the establishment. And let me just for a moment take you through, and I want to, again, if you're watching this on Instagram, please go to Rumble. The link is in my bio, or go to my X as well, or you can just search at Rumble, Zeee Media, and on X, Zeee_media, because I'm about to bring up some articles and videos and you're not going to get the best viewing experience unless you're on Landscape. So this is what happens with leftists. A Trump-hating Minnesota man killed himself and his entire family 2 days after the election. This is what leftism does, ladies and gentlemen, and this isn't an isolated case. There is currently a movement called MATGA, Make Aqua Tofana Great Again. It is a bunch of leftists on social media talking about utilizing a very ancient poison called aqua tofana to covertly poison Trump supporters and conservatives. There is an entire movement. There are women shaving their heads trying to show us. There's another woman saying, you know, they're all scrambling, trying to figure out what are we going to do about this incoming tyranny that promises free speech. And they're saying, well, we need to start wearing masks again. This is how we can't show these people our beautiful faces. Plus, it's good for our health. These are the mentally deranged things that society is resorting to as a result of mainstream media, who is a propaganda arm of the government, who is sold out to the globalists. This is what they have caused in these people. They've turned them into literally dangerous, mentally deranged people. And so these people that are arguing for the mis and disinformation bill either fall into the category of establishment slaves or slaves that don't know they're slaves, that are seriously dangerous people and likely need to have their heads examined by someone who is not affected by this mind virus. And I say that in the strongest possible terms, with the strongest possible intention behind it. These people are seriously dangerous. They kill their families after Trump wins an election. Because, and the story is, in summary, he was fearful of what the country would look like as a result. And so he wanted to kill his family in advance to save them from suffering. And this is what a lot of these people are doing. Oh, they're saying we have to poison Trump supporters. We've got to mask up. We've got to shave our heads. This is the not so drastic approach of, you know, masking up and shaving your heads. But imagine the absolute deterioration of a person's mind to think that you are somehow going to affect change by defacing and shaming yourself, or by, God forbid, harming your family and yourself because you're too afraid of the future. Look at what the establishment has done to these people. Meanwhile, on the flip side, I can guarantee you that if it was a Trump loss, the conservative people, the people on the right, the people, and it's not even left or right anymore, it's good and evil, honestly. The people on the right side, though, would have fought, would have investigated. And you know, there's leftists calling for election investigations. Great, go investigate. I'm all for that. That is not a problem. It's not a problem. Go and investigate and do all of these things. That's perfectly within the confines of normality, okay? If you want to investigate, go for it. We are not people that are against investigating elections. What we are against, though, is the hypocrisy of people who condemn those who want to contest an election for 4 years straight. And then as soon as it doesn't go their way, oh, we need investigations. So now you're election deniers, you're insurrectionists that go and protest the result of an election. You're this, you're that, you're that. But no one is calling them that, other than some tongue-in-cheek comments. Why? Because we want a normal world. We want a world where we can have these conversations, where a husband doesn't go and kill his entire family because he's too afraid of what the next 4 years will look like, where we don't have lunatics with shaved heads walking around, and where we don't have the same mind virus that's just not yet expressing itself in such extreme terms in Australia because they still have control, telling us what we can and can't say online. And so I'm certainly not attributing the acts of murder or head shaving to these people. I am just saying that it is the same problem that has infected them as it has with some of these lunatics who've lost their minds in the US. And we've all seen the footage, and I'm not going to play it all tonight. So something is shifting where the world has said, you know what, you've actually gone too far. And it's a problem a problem for them in every country. Every single country around the world is saying, we don't want this madness anymore. We do not want to teach our children about bestiality. Yes, that happened at Renfield High School in Australia. A third party came in without the parents' knowledge and told them that, started teaching them about bestiality and how great, all of these things are. We do not want our children to learn about this stuff. We don't want to be mandated to take medications or poisons. We don't want to ever submit to a lockdown or control of our finances again. We reject this, and we reject anyone who stands for this, and we reject anyone who displays even a semblance of tyranny. And a journalist recently asked Prime Minister Anthony Albanese about what he has to say about this apparent rise in populism that actually has been sparked by a Trump administration. And he went on to talk about, I guess, his achievements, of which I'm not really sure of any other than freeing Julian Assange. I can't think of one other positive thing he's done. He's called majority of the country racists for asking him questions, though. I don't know if he thinks that's an achievement. You're a racist if you ask questions about The Voice. You're a racist if you ask questions about what changes are going to be made to our constitution before you sign on the dotted line to say that you agree. You're a racist. You're hateful. And you know what? The whole country voted no in the referendum, or majority of the country, I should say. But we're going to go ahead and establish local voice to council, voice to this, voice to that. We're going to establish a UN Indigenous body that has control over Indigenous people all over the world. Because, as Anthony Albanese said, this is not about the UN. Really? Why then has the UN just gone and said, we're in control of all Indigenous people around the world now? Ha. Every single thing we said was coming has come to pass. And the people have realized that this analysis of information that independent voices, media, and just regular people alike are putting out is far more trustworthy than the propaganda machine that just spews the agenda to us. The only reason we watch the mainstream media today is to mock them and to watch what the government is planning next. The people have learned that this is what they serve. This is the purpose they serve. And so all over the world, we have this rise of people demanding honest leadership. And then some people have said, well, what do we need government for anyway? You're a slave as long as you think you need government. I think that that's ludicrous. I think we need smaller government and a lot less departments that are being paid $500,000 a year to determine what you can and can't say, but they can't even put a proper suit on for a Senate hearing. Can't even brush their hair, for goodness sake. And you're going to tell me what I can and can't say? You disgusting human being. You can't even present like a normal person, a serious person. Creating department after department after department. that is useless, just leeching off the taxpayer to come back and tell me that my opinions are now criminalized? No, the people are rejecting this en masse. And so the problem in Australia compared to the United States, and this is the problem in many countries, is that we have a poisonous current leader and a poisonous opposition leader. We have someone who says, and let me just go, he is currently using, darn it, one moment, currently using pretending, I guess, using eating disorders as an excuse to support the social media age ban, aka social credit system Trojan horse. So he said, today we heard devastating accounts from families who've been impacted by eating disorders. For any parent, there's no greater fear than seeing their child unwell. Eating Disorders Families Australia has been a powerful voice in advocating to protect young minds from the harmful effects of social media. Great. Give them some more funding. If you are absolutely serious, but no, he says the coalition is serious about our calls for the government to increase the age teenagers can access social media to 16. Now that the age limit has been adopted by the Prime Minister, let's get this implemented by Christmas. If you think these guys have been doing such a great job, you know what? Let's not go through an entire legislative process. The amount of time and resources and effort that it takes to debate something like this, and media effort and press releases and this and that, I'm sure they've spent tons of money on this entire thing. They could have just allocated even half of that to this Eating Disorders Families Australia organization and said, you know what, we're gonna fund you to go and educate people better on eating disorders and educate parents around how this affects their children on social media. And then the parents could have said, yeah, you know what, I probably need to do a better job of managing my child's social media use, not let the internet and the indoctrination camps called schools raise them. Maybe I need to take back responsibility of actually being a good parent and not hand over the responsibility of parenting to the government. I am certainly, let me make this clear, not saying that every single parent that has a child that has an eating disorder is not a good parent. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the solution is not to just go, yeah, you know what, I'm not equipped for this. Let the government do it for me. Because to allow these people into every single area of our lives, including raising our children, well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is called communist China. I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up in China, but it's very quickly becoming China. The state raising your children, and Anthony Albanese recently did a press release where he said, the onus, don't worry parents, the onus isn't on you. We, the government, are going to look after your children. I'm paraphrasing, but he said the onus isn't on parents anymore. That is absolutely terrifying, especially in the hands of a socialist government, which the Labor Party is. If they could have every one of you on a universal basic income locked in your home for the next 10 years, I'm sure that they would be very gleeful because, I don't know, it's going to stop climate change, apparently. It's going to stop the weather from changing. So I want to, now that I've had that very long rant, I want to, and I will go to comments later in the broadcast, I want to go through some of these clips from Senate estimates. And it's some of them are a bit longer, some of them are a bit shorter. And I want to do this like I did with the COVID spotlight broadcast, where we were all sitting there with our jaws dropped to the ground, absolutely insulted by the mainstream media, what Channel 7, it came out later, was censoring some of those people, and the complete whitewash on the COVID crimes. We're essentially doing that now with the mis and disinformation bill. I'm going to pick this apart, and then I'm going to tell people how we actually defeat this. And it's much easier than you think. And it has to do with leveraging from the victory in the US, and we will talk in more detail about that. But let's go through some of this. So the first clip I want to play you is, and I've forgotten the gentleman's name now, but he is a representative that came in to talk about a survey that he conducted, where he said that the majority of Australians, the vast majority of Australians, actually are concerned about misinformation and think something needs to be done about it. Now, I'll mention quickly, guys. First of all, again, if you're on Instagram, get on Rumble or on X, please, at Zeee_media with 3 E's on X. Zeee Media, all one word, on Rumble, and watch there, because you won't be able to get the full clip. You won't be able to see the whole thing. All right, so let's take a listen to this nonsense.
So we have the adult media literacy survey that we've already just talked about, but in addition to that, we asked a subset of people who responded to the survey to complete an activity-based survey. So about 2,000 adult Australians completed that activity-based survey, which is a survey where we actually asked people to complete 4 tasks to see if they could actually identify misinformation and the process that they would use to identify misinformation, for example, fact-checking. And we found in that survey that, in fact, the vast majority of Australians cannot identify misinformation. Only about 2 to 3% are very proficient at identifying misinformation. And in addition to that activity-based survey, we've gone a bit deeper with a diary study and then some follow-up interviews as well to try to get into talking about some of the causes and nuances around why people find it difficult to respond to misinformation.
So that survey where he says the vast majority of Australians are not able to identify misinformation, that survey, he earlier in that admits that was 2,000 people that were surveyed. So apparently 2,000 people speak for the vast majority of Australians. The vast majority, guys, 2,000 people that they surveyed, which, by the way, probably comprised of university students who are very much brainwashed by the establishment most of the time. Maybe, I don't think I've read through their report, this media literacy report that he references, and I'll bring it up on screen for you in a moment. I haven't been able to find the exact samples of who exactly they surveyed, but they say that it represents, people from all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds. I don't know how a survey of 2,000 people can represent all of these groups, but nonetheless, a vast majority. So you think about, this guy's in here to tell us that we need legislation that's going to impose on social media that they need to silence certain opinions and people and words and so on and so forth. And he's making that case by misrepresenting the vast majority of Australians. You cannot say from a survey of 2,000 people that represents the vast majority of Australians. So you tell me how, and I hate their words, but I'm going to use them for the purpose of this broadcast, how on earth does it make sense to have someone coming in and spreading misinformation to make their case, arguing for this? How does that make any sense? Well, to a leftist, it makes perfect sense because it agrees with them. And they're too terrified of freedom. And in their survey, guys, this is part of the survey. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's 126 pages. I've read through a large portion of it. Okay, look at this. Figure 16.2. So they've asked here, which among the following would you like to learn more about? Because he says that also the vast majority of Australians want to learn more about social media literacy. And they keep talking about this media literacy stuff and how most Australians want to be informed, need to learn more about media literacy. And let me just say, if that is the problem, if you've found that majority of Australians aren't familiar with, don't know about media literacy, then launch an education program. Don't launch a bill that aims to silence them from speaking, to not even allow them to be wrong in an environment that for the most part just sorts itself out. And we saw that. We saw that with Tim Walz, by the way, when the election campaign was still happening. There was an account that claimed that he had a whistleblower, someone who was abused in a really horrible way by Tim Walz. Immediately, the community said, something doesn't stack up here. We need more information. We're not spreading this story until we know absolutely everything. And it turned out the story was false, and they debunked it within less than a week, and that was it. That was it. And the whole community knew, okay, that is not true about this person. That's how easy it is. You just let people speak and they work it out for themselves. But anyway, they say that most people are very concerned and they want to learn more about mainly how to protect themselves from scams and also how to find news that is reliable and trustworthy. Do you know what the most hilarious part about this particular graph is, ladies and gentlemen? Well, figure 16.2, the number of topics interested in learning more about by demographic, media ability, confidence, and overall media use average. The number one group that wanted to learn more about this is people that come from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. Foreigners. Foreigners who they even admit in their methodology they needed to engage an interpreter for in order to correctly assess their responses to the survey. The majority of Australians who want to learn more about this are foreigners who don't even speak English, ladies and gentlemen. That is who the number one group, the highest rated group that is concerned about where they're going to get their trustworthy news from. That's the highest group, guys. The group that are foreigners and need interpreters to help them understand what the heck they're even being asked. So I just thought that was a very interesting piece of information for everyone. Now we're going to talk about the mainstream media. So this, I was under the impression that this person, Claire Stuckbury was representing the mainstream media. Apparently she represents Lena, which I understand is that they say exists to support smaller regional media or independent media. I've never heard of them as an independent media, but you know, fine. And it's fascinating because you just hear the cries of the MSM in this. I'm going to play a few clips from her. Take a listen.
At the moment, there's a fairly well-documented decline in the provision of local news that's been happening across the country, accelerated in the past 10 years or so. There's significant challenges to business models at the hyper-local level. We've seen a consolidation of news media across the country. I won't go into too much detail on that because I think it's a well-known issue. What we're interested in supporting at Lena is emerging newsrooms and hyperlocal newsrooms and their capacity to build sustainable business models, and we are seeing an expansion in that space, particularly in the digital distribution of news, which has a lower barrier to entry than print publications, for example. So we're seeing a transition in a few different ways. We're seeing a transition from news publishers who have been in print for a long time, who are increasingly moving over to digital distribution, in part in response to audience behaviour and also in part in response to economic pressures.
So I won't play the whole of that clip, but I just pay attention to what she's talking about in the beginning, which is essentially that an admission that there is a problem, a revenue problem with media outlets. They can't earn money. There's competition, ladies and gentlemen. The free market has decided where it wants to put its viewership and where it wants to put its funds. And by the way, let me just say, and I'll be completely honest about this, you all know I don't do this for the money. Thank God he provides, but that is not my main motivation. I want to see people free from this tyranny. But I will say, certainly, over the past few months, because people are struggling, people are, not buying as much. We're not seeing as many purchases all of the time from some of our sponsors, although, it depends on people's needs. But there is fluctuation in those things, certainly. That doesn't mean that we go and demand that CNN shuts its doors, although I'm gleeful about it, just because they deserve it. But it doesn't mean that I go and demand that everyone else shuts up and I get market monopoly so that I can earn more money. No, it just means you work harder, you understand people's circumstances, you do what needs to be done in order to keep delivering the truth no matter what. So they are arguing, and this is exactly what happened with Channel 10, you all recall. Channel 10 was failing dismally failing. And the government paid with taxpayer dollars to bail them out. Why should the taxpayer be funding businesses that they are not interested in, not to mention businesses that they perceive are lying to them? So let's go another clip on revenue from Claire.
Particularly in regional areas, newsrooms are really struggling because the business model around advertising in those areas is particularly difficult. I mean, that's also the case in the metropolitan areas, but we see that in a more pronounced way in regional spaces in particular. And that does leave people particularly vulnerable to mis and disinformation in different parts of the country. But we do see news deserts that are in the suburbs of particular areas in metropolitan areas as well. And I'm talking there about the capacity to respond to actually local information as different to, obviously we need international news, we need national news, we need statewide news, but that leaves a significant gap in terms of the things that are happening on the ground in local communities. And so the newsrooms that are most successful in a business, and so the ones that are really gathering strong audiences from responding to those needs at a community level.
So the businesses that are really successful are the ones who are gathering stronger audiences by responding to the needs from a community level. Yeah, that's what the mainstream media, who lied to us incessantly and put us through an insane propaganda war during COVID, you forced the people to rise up to start their own outlets because the people were demanding the truth. There is an appetite. And guess what happens when you tell the truth? People flock to it. People flock to it. And even if you sometimes get it a bit wrong and you come out and admit it, guys, I was mistaken on this point. Your audience, because they know your intention is not just to become a conglomerate and have a monopoly of information, the audience knows, okay, their intentions are good. For the most part, they're accurate. I'm going to keep tuning in. Or they can decide, you know what, I don't trust this person anymore. I'm going to go listen to that person. No problem. That's called free market. That's called freedom of information, freedom of speech. Everyone is entitled to it. It's actually a God-given right, not a given right by Michelle Rowland. But you see how they are acknowledging there is a serious problem with revenue. There is a problem with them earning money because no one cares about what the MSM or any establishment media outlet, any government funded media outlets, any outlets that are part of, have any sort of government support, aren't to be trusted. This is just what the population is saying. If you're affiliated with anything government, no one wants to listen to you. And the people that do have a relationship with the people on the ground are independent journalists, independent content creators who engage with their audiences, who do their best to verify. And guys, let me just say, I have seen many times, people try to operate in the independent media space and they haven't done so well. And they haven't done so well because their information isn't as accurate. Maybe their ability for production isn't as good of quality as others. Maybe they're less entertaining. Maybe this isn't their particular talent. Okay. Or there are others out there who do a better job. I'm certainly not the most viewed person on earth. There are people out there who do a phenomenal job, who I would say do a better job than me, right? And so what's my response? Oh, make sure they're banned so I can rise to the top? No, I strive to be better. But these guys who maybe always haven't been so accurate, they tend to not succeed. They tend to not grow. If they have a bad attitude, because people want authenticity, if they have a bad attitude, they tend to not grow. It comes to a point where people get fed up with their bad attitude and they say, I'm not going to listen anymore. I'll go to someone who has a better attitude. It's allowing people to be adults and decide for themselves. But that is not what the Australian government wants to do. And I'm going to play one more from Claire, and then we'll move on to other clips. You're going to love this.
You talked a bit, I think, or you touched on the challenges on continuing to deliver local media services. What's your sense on how difficult it is for the industry to monetise the provision of good information, I guess, as opposed to how easy it is for platforms to monetise bad information? And, you know, are you seeing that AI is making this even harder, or what are you seeing?
In terms of the resources required to provide accurate and transparent and fact-checked information, that is much more significant in terms of time and in terms of producing public interest journalism under strong editorial standards. That's much more time-consuming than it is to put a few words on a photograph and distribute that in an online setting. So in terms of the resources that it takes to actually to address mis and disinformation, it is much more significant in terms of the time it takes to produce fact-checked and valid information as it is to share something, you know, with a click of a button on a social media platform. And that's probably more around misinformation than disinformation. I imagine there's probably quite some time that goes into the strategies behind disinformation, but really, in terms of resources, public interest journalism is a resource-heavy activity, and small newsrooms in particular really struggle in terms of making a business model that can sustain that in an ongoing way, and that's why we've seen the newsroom closures that we have around the country.
Yes, it's just so hard for these small newsrooms. They really struggle, and this is why they keep closing. Let me tell you something. I have a very, very small newsroom operation. It's been one of the most successful in the country for the past 4 years. And I haven't had the types of struggles that you're describing, in the sense that the audience keeps growing because I take the time to verify the information. And yes, I spend well in excess of 100 hours per week to do what I do. And it is very, very resource heavy and hard. And I've been up against censorship and time again being deleted account after account, having to set up alternative accounts, having to reach my audience in other ways. I have to work triple, and I'm speaking for everyone here. Again, this is not me tooting my own horn. I have to work triple hard to get my information out with a limited team, limited resources, limited finances, all of the things that you're saying. And yet my audience keeps growing. Is that because I spread misinformation? Or is it because I tell the truth and the government is now trying to silence me and anyone else who successfully challenges the conglomerate of the lying media so that they can take back the old form of control? And mind you, these people don't want to adapt. She talks about the difficulties of having to, you know, the traditional press media now has to adapt. Yeah, damn straight you do. Damn straight you do. Do you know how many hours of content you have to watch to pluck out the most important pieces to do even a broadcast like this? I had to watch 8 hours of you babbling idiots just to get a few short clips to deliver something concise for the Australian people and people all over the world. We damn sure know how much effort it takes. Facing this entire censorship machine that wants to put a nail in the coffin of every single Australian ever being able to think or speak freely again, we damn sure know what it takes. And I'm not going to listen to some sob story of these people crying about how they just can't get their feet off the ground, because no one wants leftist trash, crap media out there. They want authentic people that'll scream into their mic on occasion like a lunatic, like I'm doing right now, because they are fed up with being trampled on. So how about you take a leaf out of the book of the crazy conspiracy theorists and actually start doing your jobs instead of being lying mouthpieces for the government that everyone hates, pretending they're doing a great job and cutting off your gas is actually good for you guys. How about you stop that nonsense and actually be authentic for a change? And maybe then your viewership and your ratings and maybe some advertisers will give you some money, guys. Pathetic, weak, Pathetic and weak. These people can't survive in the free market. The information war that has defeated them. They have been defeated in the information war, and now they're crying about how they just can't do anything about it. Government, please silence them, kill them off so that we can make money again while we lie to the Australian people, while we lie to the American people, while we lie to the people of the UK. Please, please put them in jail. I bet they would want. Suffer. It's not going anywhere. It is over. It's over. We have won. And this broadcast isn't about whinging about how bad they are. It's about exposing it and giving people real action that they can go with moving forward to make sure that this system of tyranny never rises again. But I digress. Now we're going to go into news avoidance, ladies and gentlemen. It's a really big problem. People are avoiding the news.
And I think what we see in the bill is the reference to reasonably verifiable as false, misleading or deceptive. That's what we're talking about. And I think that your point about credible institutions and sources goes to that. You know, we need to have a legislative and regulatory sort of landscape that allows us to be able to challenge reasonably verifiable, false, misleading and deceptive information as part of the process of building up trust in people as to where they can trust the information. If we don't have that, if every piece of information sits on the same level of validity, then people don't know where to go, and therefore they back away and they don't trust, and we get into news avoidance and we get into a whole lot of other issues that are ultimately damaging the ability for people to participate in free and open conversation and democratic society.
News avoidance, guys, it's damaging the ability of people because they're avoiding the mainstream media. It's actually damaging their ability to participate in an open and free society, in a democratic society, because they don't watch the mainstream media. And, you know, what we need to do to facilitate trust is to shut everyone up so that we can just tell them what we want them to hear, and that the mainstream media can continue to spew their lies, and then we'll have everyone's trust. If we just muzzle them for life, we'll have their trust. That's how this works. No, that is not how this works. And I can't tell whether this woman genuinely believes these words coming out of her mouth. I'm kind of afraid for her. Anita Plancerton, I think it was. I'm kind of afraid for her. I'm afraid that she may believe this, and I'm very concerned for her well-being if she actually believes what's leaving her mouth. But if she's just an establishment plant and saying the things that need to be heard by the people, we're not buying it. Either way, whether you are mentally unstable or you're an establishment plant, we're not actually buying it. We don't accept that the way to rebuild trust in the government and the media is to silence us. It just doesn't compute for us. And the reason why it doesn't compute for us is because we actually do have media literacy, which you all say that we're just lacking so much media literacy, even though it's mostly the foreigners that barely speak English that actually answered that question. But you claim that we just don't have media literacy, but we actually do. And you claim that we're lacking critical thinking to be able to assess mis and disinformation. Actually, we have quite a bit of critical thinking, such as a survey of 2,000 people does not represent the majority of Australians. Do you see how it works when you're actually not inside the mind virus, when you're not infected by this? You're actually able to think for yourself and go to independent sources and make up your own mind? You should try it sometime. Maybe you should have some news avoidance and go to real news. This one was hilarious. So Joel Buffone from NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency in Australia, kind of like FEMA in the US, had a thing or two to say about how devastating misinformation was with the situation with FEMA in the US. Let's take a listen to this.
So the misinformation, in my view, is that they might be sharing what their experience is, doesn't necessarily line up. So again, the authoritative source is about balancing that, and then it will self. But disinformation is where it's, directed to actually cause harm. And that's the one that I'm really concerned about. That just gives you, the example I gave about FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, where, there was disinformation and misinformation that actually put their own staff at risk and they had to withdraw.
They put their own staff at risk. They had to withdraw because of the mis and disinformation. But what it actually was FEMA lying to their staff, from my understanding, making them afraid. And this is Dr. Pete Chambers, who is a former Green Beret and Lieutenant Colonel. He has a Purple Heart, very, very respected man here in the United States, who actually went to North Carolina and confirmed with people on the ground, including FEMA staff, that they were actually told that by their higher ups, that the people were going to come and get them. They had guns. There were militias coming to get them. Why was FEMA leadership telling their staff that? Why were they scaring them like that when no one on the ground was actually making those threats? Who was spreading the misinformation? And speaking of FEMA just being so impeded to do their jobs, there was a lot of reporting about FEMA actually being a hindrance to people. There were a lot of theories, if you will, floating around about there being a specific attack on conservatives throughout this whole hurricane response, and they vehemently denied this. And even Joe Biden came out and addressed it. And what do we have here? A heartless FEMA official, we have evidence, actually ordered relief workers not to help houses with Trump signs. Okay, we just covered this on Media Blackout this week. A whistleblower has come forward with text messages revealing that FEMA ordered relief workers to purposely skip over homes in Florida displaying Trump signs in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. Okay, and we actually have that. Internal messages, which were obtained by the Daily Wire, show a FEMA official ordered relief workers in Florida not to help houses with Trump signs. So FEMA's come out and said, we're just so upset about this. We don't know how this happened, but more details have come out about that. They absolutely, it appears, knew that this was happening and it was a directive from up high. And this is just further proof that there is a clear attack on right-wing people, on conservative people, on people who disagree with the government. And this is further. So thank you for that example there. What's your name? Joel Buffone. Clearly, you are extremely misinformed on the situation with FEMA. This little independent news outlet, though, knows a lot more than you. Maybe chat to me sometime and maybe you can stop spreading misinformation in the Senate hearing. Now, the very important thing to note here as well is, well, you know what? Actually, I'll go into that a little bit later about the foreign relations and military alliance and everything. I want to play this clip here. What's the harm? This is Senator Dave Sharma from New South Wales, who asks a very, it's almost a silly question, but it's a very important question. What I mean is not a silly question, it's a silly example, but a very important one. Let's take a listen.
If I was, conduct a thought experiment and we're in 16th century Prussia or 17th century Italy and I'm Copernicus or Galileo and I start to say that the universe rotates or revolves around the sun rather than the earth, would that be on the basis of the knowledge and opinion of the day? Would that constitute misinformation? It's opinion, a claim, a commentary. It's reasonably verifiable as false according to the Catholic Church's teachings at the time. What's your opinion on that? I'm just wondering, is in a modern day scenario, if someone is to offer a theory that does not accord with conventional wisdom, prima facie that could be construed as misinformation.
There's a grave
well,
risk
that's what I'm asking the witnesses.
There's a grave risk that so.
Okay, I want to end it there. The point of that clip is he's asking a very, it's a good example, okay? There are many different examples that we could give. What if I go out and I say, guys, the sky's green and, we need to investigate this. And then a whole bunch of people start saying the sky's green. And then eventually the internet just goes, well, you're an idiot. The sky's blue. Okay. Just silly things, right? But did you see her say, when I raised my finger, did you see her say, what's the harm? So he's asking, what if someone says something that is contrary to, let's say, established facts, regardless of what shape you think the earth is, okay? What if someone says something that's contrary to established facts? Would that be misinformation? The response from one of these pro-mis and disinfo bill people is, what's the harm? Their default is, oh, well, what harm will it cause? Or what's the potential harm? Or what harm has it caused? And this is really, really interesting because they spoke about the first of all, you're not the person that decides harm because you probably think it's harmful not to mutilate children's bodies, and you think that that's transgender care. Okay, so you're not the person to decide harm, but you want to be the person to decide harm. So that's terrifying. But a very good example is the Bondi stabbing. Okay, right after that event occurred. Obviously, people are at tragedy, I should say. Obviously, there are people who do not trust the government. A majority of people don't trust the government. They don't trust the media. And immediately, the police didn't put the identity out. People started scrambling, trying to find information. And there was one particular instance of two social media people and Channel 7 airing the wrong guy, saying that he was the person who committed the crime. Channel 7, of course, got off, but the person who was wrongly accused decided to sue these two social media people, okay? There is a law for what happened there. That person claims they were defamed, and there is a legal process that person can go through to deal with that alleged defamation. We have those laws already. They exist, and there was no harm other than the harm of the alleged defamation, or the alleged harm of the defamation that was caused in that entire debacle. No one committed any further crimes. No one went out and committed any acts of violence. The same in the case of Bishop Marmari. In fact, people were praying, calling for peace. It didn't lead to any further harm. So what is harm? Well, they're saying the harm is whatever they feel like, essentially. If we look at actual harm, no actual harm has occurred at all from any of these big recent events. Really, it's actually been quite peaceful, and things have been sorted out, and we have legal systems already in process to deal with things that are alleged harm. Okay. And it's really interesting because during the inquiry, people were saying, well, we have laws that deal with all of this stuff. And I may have a clip about this, but if not, I'll just talk about it anyway. We have laws that deal with a lot of this stuff already. Yeah, okay. So why do we need this bill? If these laws exist for this, why do we need this bill? Well, the answer is actually pre-crime. And yes, I do have that clip. We're going to get to that in a minute. This is very important, though. Senator Matt Canavan talking about the military alliance implications with the US. So you would have all seen by now the clip of JD Vance. He was on a broadcast recently, and for the life of me, I can't remember the guy's name. Sean, I want to give him the credit, but I can't remember his surname. So forgive me, but I think Matt Canavan actually mentions it. Nonetheless, he was on a podcast recently, just a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the situation with Elon and the EU and the effects that would have with any type of a military alliance with the US. The US would not have any interest in maintaining a military alliance with the EU. Listen to this very, very important clip. It's a bit longer, but it's important.
If I was, we conduct a thought experiment and we're in 16th century.
Wrong clip, ladies and gentlemen. I apologise. Here it is.
Have you had any advice about whether this bill will threaten the AUKUS agreement?
We've had no advice that this would threaten the AUKUS agreement at all.
Are you aware of I read earlier, you might not be aware of these comments. Are you aware of the comments of the Vice President-elect JD Vance? Only a few weeks ago, he was asked about the EU seeking to threaten Elon Musk. And I won't read all that again because I read it earlier. But he went on to say in this interview that, so what America should be saying is, if NATO wants us to continue supporting them, and NATO wants us to continue to be a good participant in this military alliance, Why don't you respect American values and respect free speech? It's insane that we would support such a military alliance if that military alliance isn't going to be pro-free speech. I think we can do both, but we've got to say American power comes with certain strings attached. One of those is to respect free speech, especially in our European allies. Are you aware of those comments, and have you sought any advice, I suppose, particularly in the last week since JD Vance is the Vice President-elect, about the implications of the government's strategy on misinformation for our national security?
So, Senator, I am aware of those comments. What I would say in relation to your question is that there are a range of rights and protections that the bill strengthens and enhances.
But have you sought any particular national... My question was, have you sought national security advice about those comments? You're aware of them then? Well, are you just relying on your own judgment, or have you sought advice from our defence agencies, intelligence agencies, etc.?
You've heard from the Department of Home Affairs today, and in fact, we would say that the bill is very strong on national security because of its concern about
I realise time
the
tight,
actions
Chair. Can I just suspect now the third time, can I just get an answer? Have you sought advice from Defence, from Home Affairs, from other intelligence agencies about this matter, about these quotes from the Vice President-elect?
I don't believe we've, in relation to those specific comments, we are in regular communication with those agencies.
I don't believe we've looked into the most important thing to our national security. I just don't think so. I'll babble about other things, though. I'm paid a sizable salary here to come and tell you why you need to be silenced, but I don't think we've looked into matters of national security. No, I don't think so. These buffoons are telling us that they know what's best for every adult in the country. They have not considered matters of national security, admitted by them. I don't believe we've considered that. Tries to go on a 10-minute long rant about, all the other things that we've heard from this person. That's not what the question was. And if you can't even, although I think that you were purposely circling around that question because you realize how serious this problem is, but nonetheless, I might be wrong. Maybe I'm spreading misinformation. I might be wrong. I don't want to judge your intentions. But let me just say that if you can't answer a straightforward and very simple question about national security, which is part of your job here, you have no place in government at all, ever, never. Never. If you can't answer that simple of a question, it takes you 3 attempts to answer something that straightforward, you are ineffective and dangerous, really, at minimum, at bare minimum. Ineffective and dangerous. What are you doing in any type of position of power? What are you doing even having the confidence to sit in front of a Senate inquiry thinking that you are somehow providing some sort of expertise here? It's actually really, really seriously dangerous that you are here talking on behalf of Australian people, and please resign or someone needs to fire this guy, because we're talking about an army of 40-odd thousand. I don't want to get that number wrong. Let me just have a look. How big is Australia's military? Let me just see. For 57,000 full-time active duty personnel for a population of, well, it's growing now with all the non-speaking immigrants who took part in your survey. God knows how many people we've got flooding through our borders over the next few months. What exactly are we going to do with an army of 57,000 people? Plus, we've given a whole bunch of tanks to Ukraine. What exactly are we going to do without the military alliance of the US if Russia, the biggest threat, decides that they want to go to war with the West? You keep telling us that Russia is one of the biggest threats, or Iran even. What are we going to do without that military alliance of the US? Guys, this is one of the most important points in this whole mis and disinformation bill. And so I'm asking people to really make this a matter, a point of discussion all over social media, when you are calling your MPs, when you're calling your senators, because these people are so stupid they would not even have the slightest idea about what national security is. So take your time to educate them and say, I am concerned about our national security based on the fact that the vice president-elect has made these comments in the US. This is a very, very significant ally, one we depend on for military assistance in times of need. It's a very volatile environment. We've got Russian aggression. How are we going to protect ourselves if we lose the US as a military ally? By the way, whatever you think about that military alliance, it doesn't really matter. You see my point. You see my point of, if we were to lose the support of the US, what war exactly is Australia going to fight with 57,000 people in the military? China will come in here with their population of 700 gazillion and run it over in 3.5 minutes, do you think? Just as an example, guys. This is an extremely important point, and I cannot believe the stupidity of that response. No, I don't think we've thought about matters of national security and military alliances. We just want to shut everyone up so they can stop talking about the risks to our military alliances. These people are insane. It's certifiably insane. A lot of them. Maybe not that particular man, but the rest of them. I want to talk to you about pre-crime now, because this is very, very important. I'm just going to play it and then give my commentary.
The bill is not designed to deal with actual instances of demonstrated harm, but to prevent mis and disinformation from circulating in the first place. And that comes back to the point about systems and processes that platforms that have in place and prevent that information from appearing on digital platforms. If the bill was further narrowed to require demonstration of harm, you would then need to prove that the mis and disinformation had actually, for example, resulted in harm to an individual or actual harm to critical infrastructure. You'd have to prove, for example, that someone had set something on fire and linked it to the mis and disinformation. There are already laws in place that respond to those instances of harm, criminal laws. What this bill is designed to do is to prevent that from happening in the first place. So we don't have the sort of onus of proof in here that you would require in a really strict, say, criminal provision. It's more about systems and processes working with the platforms to not have mis and disinformation there in the first.
Doesn't require the systems of proof that you would normally require. It's more just about making sure that we just don't let anyone speak at all. And the very interesting point here is this pre-crime, and I want to talk about pre-bunking because this term has come out of this and a few people have spoken about pre-bunking, and I have a bit more of an in-depth understanding of this term. But they're saying, what he's saying there is that normally you would need to prove that actual harm took place. And we already have criminal laws to deal with that actual harm. And so what we want to do is make it so that we don't even need to prove any harm has taken place, which, by the way, again, if we go back to the examples of, say, Bishop Marmari or the Bondi stabbing, no actual harm resulted. No actual harm other than a contested case of one person claiming defamation, which the mainstream media did engage in, but somehow got off. I don't know. Other than that one instance of mistaken identity, which has happened all throughout history, by the way, it's not just since social media, there is no actual harm that occurred from the information, from the various forms of information and theories that were spreading around the internet. There is no harm that occurred, but they want to completely even circumvent the judicial process that would normally have to occur in order to prove that someone has done harm, and pre-crime you, say that they're going to stop you from even potentially doing something that they wouldn't like, right? And this is where pre-bunking comes in. And I want to spend a couple of moments on this. A couple of people have spoken about what pre-bunking is. And the term pre-bunking is essentially, I'll give you the official term and then I'll tell you what it actually is. Okay. Pre-bunking per, I want a Wikipedia definition and it's not giving me one. If we just go to, say, Wiktionary, okay, let's go to that just for now, because this is a fairly accurate in terms of what they say. The practice of countering potential misinformation by warning people against it before it is disseminated, okay? Where this comes from is actually the AI World Society, the UN working to, and all governments, by the way, working through their own AIs. So we all know that social media has their AIs, their algorithms. They assess, they know everything we post. They know what the public sentiment is. It's far more advanced and much better than we think it is, okay? And we heard recently through Julian Grant that she was, you know, scrubbing, and we saw the evidence of that, scrubbing every single, they have a system where any single mention of her at all online is caught by this AI tool or this system, and she can then go and read it and, you know, assess what people are saying about her and so on and so forth. So that's like really low level stuff, right? What I'm talking about is governments that definitely have AI tools that have been feeding all of our online activity, including our searches, which big tech provide them with, including our comments, our sentiment, the memes, absolutely everything, which is why I tell people be careful what you say online and how you frame it. But nonetheless, whether you're careful or not, they know what's in your mind. So pre-bunking actually has to do with them training their AIs over this past 3-4 years to be able to predict human behavior in future and put out narratives ahead of what their AI predicts you and I will do, put out narratives ahead of that, so that when the time comes, they've already said, okay, we knew that people were going to, you know, we assessed this. Our disinformation expertise was that this was going to come out, and lo and behold, it has. And so lucky we censored these people, or whatever the case may be. But it also has to do with what the AI World Society aims to do, and Ursula von der Leyen is currently, you know, having these discussions in Europe of pre-bunking. It also has to do with we know what the public sentiment is going to be. Not only does it need to be censored beforehand, but we can pinpoint what crimes certain individuals may be doing based on their prior activity. So it's actually a very complex AI World Society exercise, if you will. And again, if you're not familiar with what the AI World Society is, this is literally the reason for censorship, for digital currency, for tracking, for tracing, for never-ending injections, for all of that. And you can go and watch my series on zeemedia.com, go to the interviews page and just type in UN100. That's UN100, and you will be able to watch that. It's about 3.5 hours long, and it'll blow your mind. And it'll, you know, it links into the biodigital convergence, the Internet of Everything, all of that sort of stuff, right? So that is where they want to take this. And what I'm trying to tell people is that they've lost that battle if free speech prevails, and it is. And so I have one more clip to play for you from Senator Shoebridge, and then we'll talk about what needs to happen next.
Of course, if you're testing to see if someone's 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, you're also testing to see, by definition, if they're 16 plus. So if there's going to be age verification, everybody is going to have to go through an age verification process, won't they?
Yes. Yes.
So this isn't just about the privacy or collecting data about kids. This is literally everybody accessing social media. That's how it has to work, isn't it?
Yes.
Senator Shoebridge, you just...
I should have kept that playing because she says, you just use the words age verification. This is actually age. And she picks some other word. And she thinks she's really smart by doing it. And it's like, darling, it's the same thing. And you're not as intelligent as you think you are. You're really, really damaged by the mind virus that is liberalism, and what word he's using, whether it's verification or, you know, whatever word he used, it is verifying ages, and it requires all of society to verify their ages on social media, which is a digital ID system, which is a social credit system. That's what that is, because it will link your online activity to your ID. That's the goal of Bill Gates. It's the goal of the UN creating their UN world citizen, their UN citizen, their one world citizen. These are their stated goals, and our government is colluding with these people to make it happen. Our government is pushing Australia into the AI world society under the mandate of the United Nations, who is actively trying to establish a one world government, not in my words, by their own words, by their own lawyer, George Paoletti, who said, this is the closest we have ever come to a one world government. We are globalists. The election of Donald Trump, we are terrified of it because he is not a globalist, and we don't think the UN will survive another Trump term. This is their own words, not mine. And so I want to know, considering these terroristic admissions by the United Nations and their lawyer, George Paoletti, who says, yes, we're trying to establish a one world government. It's the closest we've ever gotten. It's been great. Considering these terroristic admissions from this organization, what the hell is Australia still doing as a member? What the hell are Australian MPs and senators still doing, pushing for initiatives of the United Nations and Agenda 2030, initiatives of COP 28, 29, 27, whatever, the Paris Agreement? What are you doing pushing initiatives of an organization that has openly said we are so close to creating a one world government? We are globalists. What are you doing collaborating with any of these people or pushing any of their initiatives? Are you mad? That is a terroristic admission. You want to argue over one word when you're sitting here admitting, yes, everyone will have to verify their ID on social media in order for us to enforce this ban. Yeah, yes, yes, it's a social credit system, of course. Do you not, what are you not computing here? And kudos to Senator David Shoebridge, who sometimes I agree with and sometimes I don't, but that was a wonderful common sense moment from him. I really, really beg you, Senator Shoebridge, I hope you watch this, and I hope you think back to the words that I said on that stage that I shared with you when we were advocating for the release of Julian Assange. And I said, I am a journalist who's been debanked in this country for my reporting. And I've been censored on multiple platforms for reporting the truth, for telling the truth. I've been branded under the label, under the banner of domestic terrorism on mainstream media for asking questions. Please, for the love of God, continue down this path of realizing what this social media age ban is, what this legislation is, what the mis and disinformation bill is, please. Because otherwise, tomorrow we are all Julian Assange. But here is the positive thing, everyone. And you know what? Someone who's watching that, clip it, send it to Senator Shoebridge, please. Because I do like him and I think he's a good man. I do. He did a lot of good for Julian Assange. The problem that these people face, and this is my assessment of that whole 8 hours of that Senate estimates hearing, it is a scramble, a last-ditch effort to try to claw back the power that they've actually lost. Guys, it's not that they're trying to stay in power. They've lost it. Please understand, they have lost the information war. It is done. The masses around the world have woken up to their BS. The people in every single country, and I don't know that we've achieved as many people on board in Australia as we need, but let me tell you, not Senator, Andrew Wallace, MP, said over 20,000, submissions were received for the mis and disinfo bill. I just interviewed someone today, it'll be out tomorrow, who told me that it was Brian... What is with me and names today? Seriously. The gentleman who did a wonderful job in the Senate. I'm going to find his surname. I literally just spoke with him. Brian Marlow. Brian Marlow, he said not only did they receive 20,000, but through their platform, they received 20,000. He knows another platform that got 15,000 submissions. So we're talking collectively, and others, right? Tens of thousands of people all over the country that were in opposition to this, that spent the time to write their grievances about this. And he said that, say, for example, to put it into perspective, if you have something like an environmental issue or something, else that's passing through Parliament, the average is anywhere between 50 to 100 submissions, he says, or maximum like 150. This received over all these platforms in excess of what we're hearing, or in excess of 45,000 submissions. More, over 55,000 we're saying. Maybe there's some double up, but as a bare minimum, we're talking over 20,000 people compared to usually between 50 to 150, let's say, that are interested in a topic. That tells me that people are more politically activated, more politically charged than they've ever been. The genuine problem is that we have a current puppet, a current UN cuck, that is going along with whatever the plan of the globalists is. And we have an opposition puppet who initially was fully in support of the mis and disinformation bill, but I presume because of the uproar from all these people, he's now not in support of it, although he's fully in support of the social media age ban, which, by the way, is all linked. It's all linked. Digital ID is linked with that, is linked with the mis and disinfo bill. It's all linked, and it's all to make sure, this mis and disinfo bill is to make sure that you can't speak about these things anymore. And it's not a direct attack, and I have to correct something some time ago and these bills are very confusing, and I've been through the whole bill and I've read through the whole bill, and I've also got the explanatory memorandum, which is even worse than the bill, by the way. And you can watch lawyers that have assessed this situation and, in Senate estimates, and spoken about the fact that essentially now opinion is criminalized per the explanatory memorandum. Opinion. And so my understanding previously was that it could be an investigation of individual content creators. Per the bill itself, it is an investigation of potential employees of these social media companies, from what I'm currently understanding. And so the point is, how do you then go, and they claim that they don't have access to individual content creators. How are you going to identify mis and disinformation if you don't have access to? I mean, it is the most convoluted piece of garbage I've seen in my life, basically. And I've watched the whole 8 hours of that Senate estimates and read the documents and done interviews and done presentations on this bill and all of the above. I have done those things. I've gone through the bill. I've gone through all of that to tell you by the end of this that this is a dying establishment. An establishment that is literally, the monster is dead and gargling as the blood fills its lungs. The establishment is done and dusted, and the victory that just occurred in the United States proves it. The critical mass that is now rejecting globalism, that wants to focus on countries' sovereignty, that wants to focus on our people first. Stop importing the third world here. They're raping everyone. Please stop. They're breaking into our homes. They're killing people. They're eating pets. We don't want these people anymore. We need to focus on our people, the hardworking people who built this country, who pay their taxes, whether you agree with paying taxes or not. I'm using it for the purpose of this argument. They pay their taxes to see this country prosper. And by the way, we pay your wages, you scumbag career politicians. We pay your wages. You are there because of us. You must. The time has come for people to say, you actually must answer to me. That's what you signed up for. I need an answer by this. What is your time frame? Okay, MP arguing for this mis and disinformation bill. I pick up the phone. What is your time frame to respond to an email? Find out. What is the time frame? What is your acceptable time frame per what they're required to do? And hold them to that standard. We pay you for this. And let me just play you a quick clip. This is Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan. And I just love this clip. I just love this clip. I could play you a million clips of this man. But this one is so encouraging and so fantastic. Take a listen to how he deals with this politician.
Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
The witness will suspend. Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
The witness will suspend. Please.
And as trivial as something like that may seem, it's actually not. Because these people have gone on behaving like they are our rulers. And this is in the vein of that video that I put out recently, which got hundreds of thousands of views across all platforms, by the way. And I'm sure you've all seen it. A short 5-minute video that I did. Australia is not a slave nation. We are not slaves for you to tell us what can and can't leave our mouths, what we can and can't think. I could spend all night. I can. I've done this before. I could spend all night taking you through the horrors of the bill, talking to you about why this is so terrible, replaying the whole thing and commentating on every single thing that they say. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. We have had enough of these people. We are not going to put up with this anymore. And no, we don't have a wonderful, alternative like America had Donald Trump. And so far, he's done some amazing things. You heard at the start of the broadcast, I said the WHO, exiting the WHO, putting this guy on as his border czar, who says to 60 Minutes when they say, isn't there an alternative to separating all these families, the ones who've come in illegally? He says, yeah, they can get deported together. No separation needed. This crazy, emotional, manipulative leftist nonsense that requires everyone to just be pansies is done and dusted. It's done and dusted. And let me tell you, and this is, again, why my focus has been very, very strong on America. What Donald Trump has said in regards to censorship and specifically mis and disinformation, I'm going to play you that whole clip shortly, is so important for Australia. So important for Australia. This will dismantle this bill, but I don't want to see this as a result of, it went through, but Donald Trump stopped it. No. We have the ability to fight this now. It's the time for people to stop believing that they have power over us. We can change. The government in Germany, the Socialist Party, has just collapsed because of the demand of the people. And they're trying to say, we can't hold an election because We've run out of paper. This is what the head of their electoral office said. And a leader in the paper industry said, no, we've got plenty of paper. Trust us, we're very efficient. They're trying everything they can. The mainstream media in America is saying, oh, there's all this propaganda and Elon Musk and this and that. We need to censor information. The difference is they have the First Amendment, and that would be unconstitutional. Australia doesn't have that. We need a Bill of Rights. We do have independent parties. My sincere thought is that these people need to band together. They need to put their little differences aside. They need to band together and form some sort of a super party with all their resources, all their finances, and find some common ground to take back, put your differences aside, sacrifice for this cause, because either of these two candidates next year, be it Dutton or Albanese, spell disaster for Australia. Maybe a little bit less disaster under Dutton, but it's not going to be any different. It's not going to be any different. You're just going to have some Conservatives with a bit of a voice in the Senate and the House. But he'd still be taking orders from the overlords at Brussels. So the Australian people, traditionally, and I'm seeing they are rising, but traditionally we've been used to being railroaded by this government. That's changing. It's changing. And if enough people begin to believe this, if enough people understand enough is enough and we can change this, we can see a significant shift next year. Because it's not just the cookers from the COVID period that are talking about this stuff anymore. It's everyone. It's everywhere you go. I've spoken to podiatrists, doctors, strangers in the chemist. I've spoken to people all over before I came here, which, by the way, people are also awake here. But I spoke to strangers over there who are like, yeah, I'm not interested in digital currency. I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. When I tell them about social media accounts being censored, they're like, that is outrageous. That is outrageous. Regular people are not stupid. There are some extreme leftists, yes, but that's not the majority of the country. Just like in the US, when you thought the media presented it like the majority were mainly just concerned about killing their babies. And that wasn't actually the case. Turns out they're more interested in being able to feed their kids and afford groceries and afford to go to work and even have a job because an illegal hasn't taken it. That the reality is not what they present, and what they present doesn't matter anymore. It's gone. It's gone. It was gone a long time ago. It's just that people now realize it. So I put out a post today, which some people may not have liked. I didn't go back to check the responses to it, but I put it out in Telegram and I said, if you're not active on X, I know you guys don't trust it, and a lot of our Telegram guys don't, and I get that. I know you don't trust social media, but please consider getting active on that platform, because I think it's utterly unacceptable that Senator Malcolm Roberts puts out this post, and I don't know what it's up to now. Let me have a look. 79,000. That is not good enough. Look at this, guys. Australians fighting now. Elon Musk, you recently posted the European Commission offered X an illegal secret deal. If we quietly censored speech without telling anyone, they would not fine us. The other platforms accepted that deal. X did not. You previously labelled Australia's push to shut down free speech as extremism. Please help us now bring the incoming Trump administration's attack on X and Australia's free-thinking citizens to light. Elon, free speech worldwide needs you. Australia needs you. This regressive attack on free speech is about to hit the Australian Senate for final vote, as here, and he's linked One Nation there, which, by the way, I think that they're a fantastic choice. I would love to see them join up with the Libertarians, with some of the other parties. It would be great if these guys all joined forces, but nonetheless, I digress. I've tagged Elon. I've said Aussie senators are begging for your help, sir. I don't agree with absolutely everything Elon says. I don't agree with absolutely everything Senator Roberts says, but people, this is the time for humanity to go right together for this one reason. We have to save free speech. I find it utterly unacceptable that an Australian senator, one that's been there for a long time, only had 81,000 views, only had 1.2 reshares of that post, where he is begging the leader of in the world of a free speech platform like X. Only that many. We need at least, this should be at least 500,000. I am certain that there are more than 1.2 thousand Australians and 268 comments that are concerned about this. This is not the time for she'll be right or for giving up or thinking, no, they're just going to railroad us. There's nothing that we can do. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The world is watching. The world is absolutely paying attention to Australia. And by the way, let me say, if you're watching from another country, don't forget that Australia is the test case for other countries. Donald Trump may be really great. He may do great things. And in 4 years' time, you may have Democrats again. And by that time, if nothing's done about this bill in Australia, the model would have been truly tried, tested, and embedded into society, and it's coming for you next. No one is out of the hot water when it comes to the New World Order. They're not just going to give up on a decades-old plan. It may be stifled for now, or not stifled. It may be delayed for now, but they're coming back. They will be back. They're not even gone yet. We're not past Inauguration Day. And I don't think that Trump is going to save the entire planet from absolutely everything. I'm very concerned with his appointment as ambassador to the UN, Elise Stefanik. I am very concerned about this person, mainly, because why are you even appointing anyone as an ambassador to the UN? What business do you have with the United Nations other than to defund them and tell them to get the hell out of your country? Maybe there's a plan there. I'm willing to wait and see. But this to me was a very serious concern. Apart from that, she seems to put foreign nations on equal importance to the United States, Israel being the case. That is very concerning to me. Should be America is the number one. We need to see more of that right now, not worrying about other countries more than your own. In the sense of liberty, but the people who are on the side of freedom, who are still being squashed by the tyrants, absolutely must still band together because it will come for everyone. It is a worldwide agenda that will eventually come for the whole world. America is not untouchable. And I'm calling on Americans to help raise awareness to this. Go and tag Elon Musk on this. I reposted it. Go and tag him. Go and share it. He also did another post for tagging Donald Trump Jr. And I went in and I tagged Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. I said Australians would be more than happy for your intervention. Help. That had 11,000 views, guys. Addressing the president of an ally that threatens to end their military alliance with us if we silence free speech in our country. And 11,000 people have viewed it? We have to do better than this, Australia. Right now, the battlefield is digital. Apart from who you meet in person, the battlefield is digital. And we have to fight in that space. Otherwise, we'll never have that space again. Because what the mis and disinformation bill will do is eventually force social media companies to stop operating in Australia. It will over-regulate them. They won't be able to define what is and isn't misinformation. This whole bill has been created out of desperation to shut up X and others that are allowing people to speak freely. Rumble, which so many people are watching on right now. That's what this whole thing is about. And we cannot let them do it. And we have to stop acting like they have the right. Because they don't. As far as the democratic process goes, you have over 20,000 on record, not to mention off record, submissions of people. Majority of those people, and not just majority of Australians, like old mate said, about 2,000 people surveyed, most of them foreigners who can't speak English. Literally, majority of those 20,000 submissions were not in favour of this bill. You cannot ignore such an unprecedented amount of Australians speaking out anymore. You can't. You have lost the information war. The mainstream media is death, bleeding out, losing, its final breaths. It's finished, figuratively. I'm not calling for harm for the people that work there, obviously. It's finished. It's in the tomb, guys. It's never coming back. No matter how much they try. First of all, they're disingenuous to begin with. They've been lying to us for years. But no matter how much they try to claw back relevance, no matter how much the government tries to seem trustworthy again, too many people are aware of, if you are pro Agenda 2030, we don't want you. If you are pro censorship, we don't want you. If you are pro a digital ID, we don't want you. If you are pro electric vehicle mandates, we don't want you. These are our demands. We are the people. We have the right to make those demands. Otherwise, you are out. And that is the attitude that every single person in Australia needs to adopt right now, utilizing the courage of what the result in the United States just was and the changes that are about to happen. And finally, I want to play this clip and then I'll go to some comments. I want to play this clip of Donald Trump. It's a few minutes, but I'm going to play it for everyone because this is the change that we can expect to see. This is what he put out on Truth Social. And this is exactly what the people of every country are demanding right now. And he is giving them what they are demanding. So just bear with me. I want to go to a full screen version of that. 1 second. Apologies. Just make sure we're full screen so everyone can see it. All right. I'm going to play this. I may not play the whole clip, but I'm going to play it and let everyone see exactly what he's saying, especially about mis and disinformation. Take a listen.
Don't have speech. If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple, just like dominoes, one by one. They'll go down. That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. And here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses. To assist in these efforts, I am urging House Republicans to immediately send preservation letters, and we have to do this right now, to the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, and every Silicon Valley tech giant, ordering them not to destroy evidence of censorship. Third, upon my inauguration as president, I will ask Congress to send a bill to my desk revising Section 230 to get big online platforms out of censorship business. From now on, digital platforms should only qualify for immunity protection under Section 230 if they meet high standards of neutrality, transparency, fairness, and non-discrimination. We should require these platforms to increase their efforts to take down unlawful content such as child exploitation and promoting terrorism, while dramatically curtailing their power to arbitrarily restrict lawful speech. Fourth, we need to break up the entire toxic censorship industry that has arisen under the false guise of tackling so-called mis- and disinformation. The federal government should immediately stop funding all nonprofits and academic programs that support this authoritarian project. If any U.S. university is discovered to have engaged in censorship activities or election interferences in the past, such as flagging social media content for removal of blacklisting, those universities should lose federal research dollars and federal student loan support for a period of 5 years and maybe more. We should also enact new laws laying out clear criminal penalties for federal bureaucrats who partner with private entities to do an end run around the Constitution and deprive Americans of their First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. In other words, deprive them of their vote. And once you lose those elections, and once you lose your borders like we have, you no longer have a country. Furthermore, to confront the problems of major platforms being infiltrated by legions of former deep staters and intelligence officials, there should be a 7-year calling-off period before any employee of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DNI, DHS, or DOD is allowed to take a job at a company possessing vast quantities of U.S. user data. Fifth, the time has finally come for Congress to pass a digital Bill of Rights. This should include a right to digital due process. In other words, government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening, the right to a specific explanation of the reason why, and the right to a timely appeal. In addition, all users over the age of 18 should have the right to opt out of content moderation and curation entirely and receive an unmanipulated stream of information if they so choose. The fight for free speech is a matter of victory or death for America and for the survival of Western civilization itself. When I am president, this whole rotten system of censorship and information control will be ripped out of the system at large. There won't be anything left. By restoring free speech, we'll begin to reclaim our democracy and save our nation. Thank you, and God bless America.
Okay, so one immediate thought that I have is, how are you going to opt out of content moderation? How are you going to prove you're over 18? Will that require ID? Don't want that. I don't think ID should ever be linked to your online use. So that is, in my opinion, a problem. Will it just require someone to say, yes, I'm 18 or older, and you just trust that person? I don't know. No one should ever submit to a digital ID. This is why I am not monetized on X. It requires you to link your ID in order to be monetized, and I refuse to do that. Okay, so this is a principle stance for me. It matters more to me than, a payout on X, whatever that payout may be. I've made that clear many, many times. But everything that he said there is completely the opposite of what the Australian government is doing. In fact, in that Senate estimates inquiry, they were suggesting that somehow this would give us more human rights, hilarious, And they were going to, people were being censored on social media, so we needed more transparency around that. The answer is not to over-regulate them, to remove some arbitrary definition of mis and disinformation, or some, invisible definition of what is harm, what is this. These conversations need to end. The solution is a more free society, no censorship, more free speech, more public discourse, and the truth sorts itself out. Community Notes is an example of that. Mind you, I don't agree with all of the decisions of Community Notes, but hey, sometimes I learn a thing or two from them. That is a perfect example. And if I don't learn, I go out and I come to my own conclusion in the end. Why? Because I'm an adult and I'm in charge of my own brain and my own opinions, and by the way, my own vote. And, it's really astounding to me. Senator Matt Canavan actually gave an example to them, because they used the example of the Italian elections and how mis and disinformation online resulted in the election of a right-wing populist party. Now, first of all, he said, has any of you spoken to our allies in Italy to see how they feel about you, implying that their elections have been manipulated? Has anyone reached out to them? The answer, of course, was no. They would, we'll take that on notice, which is the default response. But you are essentially saying that there's a problem with right-wing populist leaders being elected, and that's why you need this bill. You are saying that there's a problem because the news media is failing, the mainstream media is failing, they can't make any money, therefore that's why we need this bill. We need to shut everyone up so that we can get back the control of the information that we have clearly lost. Ladies and gentlemen, they have lost the battle. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. Obviously, we still have some time to Inauguration Day. There have been multiple warnings of they will try anything. And yes, everyone feels it is very, very eerily quiet from the Democrats right now. They are all too easily conceding. They went from saying this guy's Hitler, Mussolini, he's going to lock us in camps, he's going to do all this sort of stuff. And while we do have some crazy leftists that have been responding, in their lunatic manner by shaving their heads or whatever, the media and the Democratic Party themselves are just like, well, it is what it is. It's happened. And they're, turning on each other and blaming each other and blaming misogyny and racism and whatever other nonsense they say. The point is, why have they gone from saying this guy's Hitler, we need to stop him at all costs, to, well, it is what it is, he won the election fair and square, and now we're okay, guys, we just got to do what we got to do. It's very suspicious to a lot of people, and it should be. So we're not out of the woods. There have been talks of additional potential assassination attempts on Donald Trump. That is a very, very real risk. There have been talks of, they may do the cyber attack. They may do, let me just go through a bit of a list here. They may do societal disorder. They may actually bring, activate their leftist army. They may go into any type of emergency where basically, we can't proceed with the outcome of this election because we have an emergency now and everything's on hold until we deal with this emergency. So they may activate their Antifa, their armies. And in fact, we did have Rachel Maddow from MSNBC telling people you need to get to exercise and be prepared to fight the federal government. So they are using these words. And I can't remember who it was that told me they counted the word fight in Kamala's speech over 60 times. Now, I haven't counted it myself, but she did use the words fight many, many times. Now, the difference is when we say we have to fight for our rights, we're talking about doing things the right way. When they say we have to fight, they are talking it's a very different language. It's the language of Jamie Raskin, who says, well, we're just not going to certify the election and we're going to create civil war conditions if he wins. So we are certainly not out of the woods in America and the rest of the West. But look at the stark contrast between what Donald Trump says he's going to do to tackle the problem of social media, which is actually a problem of censorship, not too much speech, versus what the Australian government, the EU, the UK, who's just released basically a carbon copy of the social media age ban. Look at the stark differences in these companies, in these governments, I should say, companies. So we have a real chance to turn humanity around. We need to piggyback, the whole world needs to piggyback off what just happened in the US and use this opportunity to really, to change the course of our nations, to change the political discourse and demand better leaders. We don't have to say in Australia, okay, our only choices are Anthony Albanese or Peter Dutton. Let's put pressure on the independent parties. Let's get them to get together. Let's talk about, you guys are serious about saving the country? These are our demands. What say you? Because they seem to be the only ones listening to the people. We need them to start talking about things like Bill of Rights to enshrine free speech in Australia. We need them to start talking about correctly tackling the quote unquote social media problem, which isn't all that much a problem other than censorship. These are the conversations we need to start having, and we must be bold in this. These people are not going to railroad us anymore. That time is over. They have lost. We need to maximize the pressure now on our end as the victors. Now, I'm going to go to your comments in a moment, but I want to remind everyone that we don't have the backing of the Murdoch media conglomerate. We don't have the backing of Pfizer. We don't take money from any of these globalist entities. We, independent media, are backed by independent sponsors that value free speech, that value the fight for humanity, and they have been in this fight for us. And so by supporting our sponsors, you're also supporting us and getting products that we believe in and we advocate for, absolutely, and products that we use ourselves. The satellite phone store, the link is in the description below, sat123.com. They have everything from Faraday bags, power banks. Their big power banks are only sent to the US, but you can order their phones. They work anywhere in the world. The more you buy, the more you save. You get it on a plan, just like a phone plan. And this is a very secure way of communication. I've always said to everyone, the cyber threat, the cyber shutdown is their wild card. In the utmost desperation, they may go that card, albeit earlier than they wanted to. A cyber shutdown, cyber COVID, cause absolute maximum chaos all over the world. A satellite phone, people say, well, they're going to shut down everything. No, they use the satellite networks, guys. So a satellite phone is going to be your last way to communicate with your family, your loved ones, and trusted people. And a more economic option for you as well is the Bivy Stick, which allows you, that's this one here. It allows you to send text messages to your loved ones using your cell phone, using the satellite network, even if there's no cell service. So I highly, highly recommend everyone gets themselves backup communications. Everyone that I know that's living in communities that's prepping, and still prepping, by the way, because we're not out of the woods, these people they all have satellite comms. So this is very important. If you're in the US, we're still not out of the woods as far as food shortages go. There's me with my Heaven's Harvest gear. I've chosen this company because they've really supported us for many years, and their food, they have freeze-dried food, which the difference is you only need to add water. They also have organic options, and you get 10% off if you use our code. So you can go to the link in the description below. Make sure you are prepared with precious metals. If you're in the United States, kepm.com/Maria, give them a call or send them an inquiry and they will get back to you. No, they don't take commission on your sale. Very, very important for people. An important difference in the way that they do business here in the United States compared to some of the other companies. If you're in Australia, you can go to Gold Bullion Australia Group. These guys are amazing. This is where I get my stuff from, and in the US, I get it from KEPM, all my gold and silver, and they absolutely look after all of our people. They will give you as much education as you want around to help you make a decision. And always want to give a shout out to Stockman Steaks, supporting our Aussie farmers. Donald Trump just announced that he's got a regenerative farmer coming into his administration to tackle the food crisis. And so this is going to have a flow-on effect in Australia. And now is the time to support our Aussie farmers. This is 100% pasture-raised, quality, restaurant quality meat. It is farmer direct, humanely raised, antibiotic-free, guaranteed no mRNA, and it is absolutely delicious. My whole family eats this, and we really, really do encourage people to support them. And by doing that, you also support us. That's just a few of our sponsors. We've also got EMF solutions, phone shields, garden pucks, things that help food last in your fridge longer from Hope and Tivon, and also the Above phone, which is a smartphone that's de-Googled, not able to be tracked and traced if you set it up correctly. And they also have a consultant that will sit on the phone with you and help you set that up. So those are just some of the people that support us, all freedom-loving people. And again, by supporting them, you keep us going. And we really, really do value those people who've been supporting us for some time. Now, I want to go to some of the comments. I'm going to go to Rumble first. I don't actually know if I don't have the live stream open in X. So let me open that one too. Where did my X live stream go? What happened? Did my X live stream end? That's really weird. That is really, really bizarre. Oh, I think it's because I set it till 10 p.m. Okay. That's a shame, but that's okay. I will go to the Rumble comments and I will read some of your comments. Someone said, Maria, if it's digital ID or off the internet, are you going to have your kid and bake bread with your husband? Move on. You are a fighter and they know who and where we are. Surely you'd fight on. I plan on fighting on for as long as I'm alive, really. This battle is a battle for our soul. It's a battle for our spirit. Ultimately, it is a religious battle. I see that at the core of all of this. And so it's, I don't have any intentions of not fighting on. If I'm required to use a digital ID to access the internet, I will simply go to a country where that's not the case until there are no countries left, I suppose. I mean, what else can you do? What else can you do? You need to continue the battle. So no, I don't have any intention of ending the fight, but I certainly do want to bake bread and have kids. So I'd like to do both. I asked an American I work with about Tower 7. He had no idea what I was talking about. Even Americans are asleep in Australia. Well, let me just say, any American that moves to Australia needs to rethink their decisions. And everyone I've met here that's awake says there's no way I would ever go to that country now. It's a shame, but yeah. Okay, there's someone being abusive in the comments. I'll just leave you two to sort out your dramas. It's a question. It's in caps. Okay, that's them still dramas. Where is the admin in this live chat? Come on, kids. This is what the globalists want, us fighting each other. What are you guys doing? Stop it. Stop being silly. I can't stop you because I'm not your mum, but just stop because we want to talk about real things. Great Australia Party are onto this free speech ban, Rod Cullerton. Yeah, I think he's amazing. I think the Great Australian Party is fantastic. I just don't think they have the traction that they need. More well-known parties are like the Libertarian Party, One Nation, although I'm supportive of all of them. You know me, I support all the major parties. I don't have a particular bias. United Australia Party, I think Senator Babbitt is great. I think he's exactly the kind of outlier that Australia needs. He says outrageous, offensive things, and I think that's exactly what we need. The Australian people are too politically correct. It's just nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating. Someone say I've always been proud of Maria. Thank you. I appreciate that. Networks were shut down in parts of India during C-19 to disconnect the population. Yes, and that is my concern with this. That is definitely my concern. Someone saying biodigital convergence, IEEE wireless body area network. These are topics that I've spoken about in great detail many, many times. You can go back and watch my latest interview with Hope and Tivon on zeemedia.com for more on that subject. Very concerning. But I do think when you look at and so some people say oh, but what about this? What about this? And people just want you to talk about what they want to hear about all the time. Like they just want they want to be your Michelle Rowland. They want to be your censorship czar, and I'm not going to do that. I will obviously, if the audience is genuinely interested in a topic, I will absolutely cover it. I don't shy away from anything. You guys know that. But I'm not going to be berated into just talking about one thing that you think is the most important. Sorry. But in that particular interview, and I only say that because it's been a thing of late. People are like, oh, you think Trump's going to save the day and blah, blah, blah. What about this? What about that? No, I don't think that he's some sort of a savior. I have one savior, that man is Jesus Christ. I just think that everything that he's talking about is literally dismantling Agenda 2030. The next thing I'd like to see is him leave the UN, and that sets a precedent for the rest of the world to completely dismantle this globalist organization and its infection on the world. But my latest interview with Hope and Tivon digs into those subjects, so go and check it out. It's on zeemedia.com. Musk and Trump are all about AI. So regarding AI, look for it to be the roadmap to the mark. When will you finally realize that's what's coming to fruition? I don't think I'm not realizing that. I've actually spoken about that many times. My concerns around Elon Musk and his proclivity towards transhumanism. I think that it is very alarming. I absolutely am, a fan of the Department of Government Efficiency, which I believe now has formally been announced, if I'm not mistaken, will be headed up by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. He openly talks about Vivek in particular talks about his former involvement with the biotech industry. And yet he left that and left all the money that he was making in that to do this and not make much at all. So, I think that you can't necessarily say that people who are very wealthy, who've invested in companies that they've been advised are going to be very profitable, who aren't fully aware of what those companies are all about, are all bad guys. You can't say that some people who are in this game haven't woken up, because we've seen it time and time again. Look at Naomi Wolf, a leftist feminist who's now far more centrist than, feminists would normally be. You've got examples of these types of people who do turn around. And so to just say, oh, they're all bad because of their history, I don't think is fair. I think we need to judge people by their actions. And what I've seen of Elon Musk is that he is doing good things. Now, I've also said, well, I am concerned about the amount of time that people spend on X. It is the battleground, but is it also some sort of a trap? It's possible. There are still certain topics that are censored on that platform. I know that if I post too much about injections, or if I post too much criticism of Israel, my account will be shadow banned. I can tell you that. I've seen it happen in real time. It doesn't stop me from posting these things, but I'm aware that there is still some censorship on there. I have a problem with that. Why are we calling it a free speech platform when some people are still getting shadow banned and suspended? I was very concerned about X's involvement with Digi. And now they're no longer part of that alliance, which is very, very good. They've pulled out of time and time again alliances that end up, or organizations that end up stifling free speech. They have time and time again gone against these organizations. So I don't think we can expect everyone to be perfect, but looking at the track record, it's been going well. And so I will support where there is freedom and where there is freedom to speak. I will always support that, even if I don't agree with certain individuals. I am concerned about AI, obviously. I've spoken about that time and time again, and we need to keep an eye on that. The Department of Government Efficiency is great. Cutting apart all these government jobs is great. Is it going to be replaced by AI, though? Well, that's not good. We don't want all these government departments run by AI. I think an element of that will be the case. I am concerned about that. So these are things that we have to see how they pan out. But to assume people's intentions ahead of time, I don't think is fair. Is it true Trump is bringing Fauci into his administration? I can't see that happening anytime soon. What is the mesh network? I'm not sure what you're asking about. Is this to do with the IEEE, the wireless body area network? I'm not familiar with the mesh network specifically. Why are buildings called buildings when they are already built? Okay. Maybe it's late. It's late here. It's 10:15 now. Someone's saying, Canada, if you make vids about Chinese fentanyl money laundering, bam, gone. Yeah, that's insane. Someone said people are fast to call out the stick in Trump's eye, but forget the logs in their own eyes. Poofed. Yeah, this is, I think I've said this before. We live in an environment where trust is very low. And there would certainly be people that are willing to exploit that low level of trust and, attempt to gain it, pretending to be in the best interest of the people when they're actually not. What I will say is that time and history has proven that the truth always surfaces. Always, always, always. And so I am more inclined to go with the position of I can see people that are doing good things. I can see good fruit as a result of those things. I'm going to support that until it's proven otherwise, and I will keep my guard up. That it's very simple. It's very simple. And I support freedom of speech being unleashed all over the world. And that clip that I played you from Donald Trump will achieve that. It's the pressure, the mounting pressure of people in every single country when they know the freedom that America has, the governments won't be able to contain it. Someone said it's the Jeets still in the back end workings of X. I think there's a lot of back end stuff going on. I think there's stuff that Elon may not be aware of, some stuff that he is aware of. We can't forget the role of hackers. We can't forget the role of hackers within intelligence agencies, foreign influence, all of that sort of stuff. I think that's important to always be aware of. And the fact that, you've got social media bots, you've got people with, accounts that seem very legitimate that are part of intelligence agencies. We know that that's come out about Unit 8200 in Israel. That's a known fact. We know Russia has that. We know Australia has that. We know America has that. It's not the UK. It's so a lot of these, voices that are pro-government are actually part of those agencies. So, yeah. Maria, do you think Dutton needs a haircut? I don't know if there's much to cut there. Maria, you're in the future, 17 hours ahead of us. Always nice to hear from you in the future. I don't know where you are, but I'm in Central Time in the US, which actually means for Australians that they're in the future of this broadcast, which is weird. Trump's last term, most people were still asleep. As long as freedom of speech exists, it will get figured out. Yes, like people get figured out Israel. That's exactly what I'm saying. If we have freedom of speech, then the truth will rise to the surface. The truth will always rise. Guys, darkness will always be brought into the light. It will always be exposed. And I, for one, am extremely positive about the future. Yes, many, many things to still be concerned about. Many things to, we have to get to Inauguration Day for this man to be able to change some fundamental things that will allow us to fight back this establishment, this globalist establishment. Freedom of speech is at the core of that. It's at the absolute core of that. And with that, we have a fighting chance. And I just don't think that Australia will be able to get away with this bill. It just won't. If it wants to remain an ally of the US, which it will, obviously. Someone saying Babbitt would be our Trump, too bad he's in UAP, that has no future. Well, I don't know that it has no future. I just think that, you know, they could have done a lot better supporting some of their candidates the last time there was an election. I think that they share a lot of the values that we have. They certainly support free speech. Look at the outrageous things Babette says. And, you know, he's allowed to say them. I think that's great. I think we need to radically support free speech. And I really love that value from that party and from Senator Babette. I always call him Babbitt, but I think it's Babette. And so, I think he's a great choice to rise through the ranks. Is he ready for prime minister yet? I don't know. I don't know which of them are. A few people said Senator Rennick. Is he ready yet? I think he's fantastic. He's a great independent. He is phenomenal. He's worked extremely hard for the Australian people. And I can tell you, you know, that he like many, he's done a lot of years of service, and like anyone could benefit from just retiring and, you know, living his life, but he wants to keep serving the Australian people. And to me, that is a person of integrity, definitely. Someone saying you're still asleep about Trump, Maria. Okay, thanks. Like I haven't thoroughly thought this out and explained myself for the past 15 minutes, but God bless you. And I have said time and time again, I'll hold him accountable like I do with everyone else, and like I've done with his UN pick, like I've done with, you know, potentially the rumors that were going around about Mark Rubio. I will always hold these people to account, like I did with Elon's automated vehicle, idea. I don't need to justify myself. My track record is that I hold these people to account, even if I mostly agree with them. So that's it. I'm going to stop that there. The ABC just threatened Thomas Sewell concerning the state taking his kids. I don't know about that case. I know a little while ago there was a post. I think he's affiliated with some of the nationalists in the country. I don't know too much about him, but I know a while ago there was a post of some of those nationals, and I perceived it to be a strange hand signal, and I posted that. And then a few of them said, I'm part of this group, we're not, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't want to make assumptions about people that I don't know. From what I understand, he's a nationalist, maybe even a white nationalist. And the system hates that. You're allowed to be a nationalist of any other race, any other country. You know, you're allowed to have loyalty to Ukraine, but you're not allowed to have loyalty to Australia. You're allowed to be a proud Asian, a proud Indian, a proud black person, a proud Jew, a proud Muslim, a proud whatever. You're just not allowed to be a proud white Christian. And I find that abhorrent. And I can be proud of being white if, you know, not that I think I need to be proud of it, but I should be able to if I want to. Why is that forbidden? Why is it forbidden to be proud of being who you are? You know, as a white person, I think it's disgusting. I think it's incredibly racist, and I won't put up with it anymore. And most of the world isn't putting up with this anymore. We see it. We see the sea of people refusing to go along with this rising, guys. And so I'm just encouraging everyone, take courage. We're not out of the water yet, but take courage. Don't allow inaction just because, Trump may, you know, put an end to this. Don't allow that inaction. Use this time to put the most pressure that you've ever put on before, because we've broken through the dam. You know, the amount of stories that I've done on the COVID injections, I have lost count. And, you know, even in the most recent ones, I thought, gosh, I've covered this so much. People must be so sick about hearing about it. But how can I not talk about it? Because it's still important. And then the Idaho Health Board decides they're not going to supply those products anymore. The Australian local government says in Port Hedland, Councillor Adrian McRae starts challenging the TGA, you know, sending notices out to all these counsellors and pharmacies and doctors. There is still good happening. So we have to keep at it. As exhausting as sometimes it can be for some, we have to keep at it. The fight for humanity is not over. And I want to just mention as well, InfoWars tomorrow is the day that will essentially determine their future. I have been praying for this broadcast. I encourage everyone to. They're an incredibly effective broadcast full of very, very good people. There's a lot of people there that you don't see on air that are just some of the most wonderful individuals on earth. And they care so much about everyone, by the way. And so please pray for them and support them if you can. Alex is planning on continuing. He's launched the Alex Jones Network on X. Give them a follow. And I dare say that no matter what happens, whether they're purchased by the good guys or the bad guys, InfoWars will never die. And so I'm hoping for the best for them, and I'm so glad to see them in good spirits and talking about continuing to fight on. These people, this enemy of ours will go to extreme lengths to silence us. Even in the case of Alex Jones, they want to stop him from being able to use his name. That's slavery. And they will go to extreme lengths to intimidate and silence. And what they've done is underestimate the human spirit that actually abhors tyranny. And history shows us that every time that humanity faces extreme persecution, they come out of it victorious. And the key is that they don't give up. They don't give up and they keep fighting, and that's exactly what we need to do in this instance as well. So please continue. Go to X, share Senator Malcolm Roberts' post, tag Elon Musk, tag Donald Trump. If you're not following us, you can, and if you're watching this on Rumble and you haven't subscribed to our channel, it's free. Do so. And if you're on the Rumble app, make sure you hit, I think there's a notification bell for alerts so that you get alerted when we go live. Also, follow us on X at Zeee_media. That's Zeee_media. That's our X account. You can find me on other platforms, but mainly these, and Telegram, being Zeee Media, all one word, is where we post. I post more on Telegram than I do anywhere else because I know that it is the most, available in terms of free speech, even though there's been some funny business going on there lately, which is why we had to turn off our comments. But nonetheless, we are very, very grateful for all of you. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your determination and your courage. Don't let that flame die, because I'm telling you now, change is coming if we just believe that. And I'm not doing the woo-woo stuff. I mean it. If we just believe it, this period of persecution can be turned around. It can be turned around, and we will turn it around. We need stronger leaders in Australia, and I think we can start having conversations with some of those independents. If you know them, start talking to them. They need to be more forceful. They need to put out messages like what Donald Trump did. This is what we need in this country, and I promise you people will flock to it, because people are flocking to liberty. People are flocking to liberty. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Remember to like, share, and share this with everyone that you know, so that we can make a mockery of these so-called experts that want to silence us, who can't even brush their hair for a Senate hearing. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll be back with you guys very, very soon for another live stream. Got an interview coming out tomorrow on this topic, and I'll keep you informed on socials. Good night, and God bless. Zeee Media is proud to partner with freedom-loving businesses like Gold Bullion Australia Group, Australia's leading dealer of gold and silver bullion. In such uncertain times in the market, many are switching to lasting physical assets like gold and silver rather than depending on the crumbling financial system. GBA Group is an Aussie partner you can trust. They have a huge range of available gold and silver at competitive prices, a friendly, experienced team on standby for all of your questions, are family-owned and have been specialising in precious metals for over 40 years. They're looking forward to helping anyone that has come from Zeee Media, so click the link in the description below, visit one of their offices now spread across Sydney, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Melbourne and Singapore, or call 1300 618 363 and consider securing your wealth today.